Joining me now is the CEO of Iridium Sports Agency, who joined an elite club this past weekend when his fighter, Brandon Moreno, became the UFC champion. Jason, man, congrats on the win. How does it feel to be in the Champions Club of Managers now?
Man, it feels great. You know, it's definitely exciting times for us in the agency and for Brandon. And it just couldn't have happened to a better person. You know, I'm really thankful to be on this journey with Brandon.
Yeah, and I know that you've been his manager for a little while now, and he had his ups and downs. I mean, he left the UFC not too long ago. Talk to me what it was like to witness his perseverance and kind of be there along for the journey towards title gold.
Yeah, you know, we actually signed Brandon when he had been cut by the UFC. So our first fight together was LFA. And even taking that LFA fight at that time, we were really struggling to kind of find the path for him, right? I mean, Bellator doesn't have a flyweight division. The UFC was cutting the division. We're kind of exploring our options, maybe Combate, maybe Risen. So really, you know, we decided to take the LFA title fight and kind of just win the belt and kind of decide from there where we're headed. And thankfully, McMahon at the UFC, he believed he could revive the division and get it back on track, and he definitely has.
Phenomenal, man. And I'm not sure when did you come along with? Were you there for the whole fight week last week? Did you witness it from start to finish?
Yep. I was there from Tuesday to Sunday. Yep.
So I think for me, you know, things started to seem, at least in the public eye, things started to seem like Brandon had all the momentum at that press conference. I don't know about you, but it seems like over the past year, not having fans, he became quite the star, you know, and that reception that he got was right up there with Nate at that press conference. Were you surprised at all at the pop that he got and how much people seemingly had fallen in love with him over the pandemic?
I wasn't surprised that he had gotten the reception he did in Arizona, just because he had fought in Arizona so much. But I 100% agree with you. The press conference for me was when the tide turned. Seeing how he handled the press conference, seeing him just really embrace the moment. And then the clinching for me was when we went outside to get into the van to go back to the hotel. They had all these fans outside cheering and screaming for him, and he stepped on top of the van and he was just going off, you know, talking and just predicting that he was going to be the champ Saturday night. And at that moment, I really knew that he was in his groove, he was in his element. I could just tell that he was really embracing this moment.
Yeah, that for sure, man. And that carried over into the fight. First two rounds, I think everybody, regardless of who they picked in that fight, thought it would be close. They thought it would be like the first one, kind of a back and forth war. And then you start to see him, and he's just a step ahead of Figueiredo in those first two rounds. Going into that third round, you must have felt pretty confident, and then obviously things played out the way they did. So pretty exciting moment for you sitting cage side.
Yes, you know, heading into the third, I'm like, man, we're up 2-0. Man, we win this round. I mean, we're going to be sitting pretty good heading to the championship rounds. I was really surprised by the first round. I really felt the first 3 minutes of this fight was really going to be hell for us, right? That Figueiredo was going to come out swinging heavy, and that we really kind of had to weather that initial storm, and then we would be okay in the fight. But it just seemed like Figueiredo couldn't get going in the first round, and Brandon really took over the momentum. You know, that third round for me, I'll never forget that. I've never been so excited in my life.
Yeah, for sure. And you got to be in the cage afterwards to see the belt wrapped around his shoulder and that emotional moment. Just being a part of that journey. And I know you've done this for a while. How special was it to finally get that first champion? Somebody like Brandon too, who obviously clearly truly appreciated it. And, you know, it was a pretty special moment, I think, for you all.
Yeah, I got to be honest. The minute he won, I just put my head in my hands and just started to cry. It was just, you know, from an agency standpoint, it was 12 years of hard work. Our whole team here at the agency has been, you know, working for this one moment, and that journey with Brandon and our relationship. You know, he's very, you know, our families are very close, and I know all the adversity that Brandon has gone through. It was an accumulation of just so much emotion. You know, I wasn't even, like, Ozzy from the UFC came and got me to take us to the cage, and I wasn't even really focused on that. I was so emotional just on the win itself, and just seeing Brandon being able to get that rear naked choke. I felt like, you know, the minute he tapped, like, it was just like this release of adrenaline and emotion built in for these last 6 months, just waiting for this moment.
Yeah, and if you look at that was a great card on paper. I mean, it was a pretty stacked event, but Brandon kind of stole the show. So you have quite the star in your hands now. And obviously, when a fighter becomes the first one from their country to win UFC gold, they can go on to become an icon. I mean, we've seen it with Conor McGregor and some others. They really can have an impact on their country. So what do you think, from your perspective as a manager, the kind of opportunities that are out there for Brandon, maybe even outside of fighting, like kind of becoming that icon? What do you think his ceiling is when it comes to being like, a Mexican star?
I definitely feel the doors are open right now for him to walk through in a multitude of faucets, right? I think one, he's going to be the torchbearer of MMA into Mexico. I think now that they have a Mexican-born champion, the country's really going to rally behind Brandon. So that's going to be very good on one end. On the second end, I think it's going to open a lot of possibilities for him being the first Mexican champion. He's really going to propel himself into stardom, like you said. So, and I think thirdly now, I mean, hosting an event in Mexico in the near future would be an amazing opportunity for Brandon and for the country and for everyone that's coming up. There's a lot of great talent in Mexico right now in MMA. And I just feel like Brandon's opening those doors for the next generation and hopefully creating more opportunities, not just inside the cage, but outside the cage as well.
Yeah, we're only 72 hours, three or 4 days out from that fight. But have you gauged any interest from the UFC that they would be interested in bringing him there? I know the world's in a weird place right now. I don't even know what the rules are and the restrictions in Mexico. But do you think that's a real possibility that you guys could get done?
Exactly like you said. I think depending how COVID's being handled down there, I think when the time comes, I definitely feel like we'll go back down there and have Brandon headline an event.
Awesome, man. And I got to ask you about some of your other clients too. I know this weekend you have a headliner as well, the Korean Zombie.
Yes. Big
fight against Dan Ige, opportunity to rebound. When you manage a guy like Zombie who's got such a big name, and sure, he had a loss recently, do you feel like, a couple wins, he's right back in the mix considering all the fan support he has, and he's been a top tier fighter for years?
100%. I think one, like you said, outside the cage, he has that stardom. He has a huge fan base just for his fighting style. That's always going to make him relevant and always make him 1 or 2 fights away from a title shot. And I think inside the cage, I believe only one performance in his whole career he did bonus in. So he's someone that's constantly bringing the fight, constantly a fan favorite. The UFC loves him. Everybody loves him. So I'm real excited. I'm a huge Danny Day fan. He's a great person, and I'm excited to see how this fight plays out. They definitely got the style to make a great fight come Saturday night.
For sure, man. Yeah, much respect to both guys. And I know Zombie kind of took that last loss a little hard. Some of his social media posts, he was expressing, some real disappointment in himself. But during this camp, you talking to him, do you feel like he was able to kind of generate that in a positive way?
Yes. I think, whenever you face adversity like that, it allowed a lot of self-reflection amongst our camp to make the adjustments necessary to come back this week and put on a good showing. I've always said this, the sport has the highs and lowest lows. And I think it's good when an athlete, suffers some adversity to feel those emotions, to digest them and analyze them, and then make the necessary adjustments.
Another fighter of yours, Walt Harris, kind of had a rough go with his last fight. I know he's lost a few in a row. Are you pretty confident that he can get on the rebound? Do you think, that he's still kind of in the UFC's plans going forward? Have you thought about him at all?
Yes, Walt had a really good talk the day after the fight. I think we have the necessary adjustments implemented right now. I just don't think we had enough time for this fight. So he's going to come back to Las Vegas, where he was getting a lot of good looks with some heavier bodies, some solid teammates to train with. And we're making some great adjustments with Coach Eric Nixick at Extreme Couture. I just don't think we had enough time to really, when you're in the middle, when you start camp somewhere new, it takes a lot of time to adjust and to add some tools to the toolbox. I think getting here now, getting him back on track, getting him focused, we're on the right track right now. And I'm real excited to see his next UFC fight and have some redemption.
And I know his pal, everybody's favorite fighter coach, James Krause. I feel like we've seen him doing a lot of coaching recently, but fighting, what's next for him? Do you think we'll see him back soon?
I think we will. I always tell James has always been one of my best friends in the sport. So to finally get to work with him and him, I've always wanted to keep him fighting. But, coaching is taking off. His coaching career is taking off. I think he's, up there right now for probably maybe coach of the year. Such a great job he's done with all these athletes. And, I definitely would like to see him get back there. We've mentioned a couple of names that he's interested in. So I'm going to talk to Sean Shelby and see if it's possible to get one of those lined up and get James back in there.
You still got to get him and Walt to do a podcast together. I think that needs to happen.
It definitely needs to happen. And you know what? Funny story is when we won on Saturday night, you know, I was emotional. I'm crying. I mean, James was the first person that found me in the crowd, and he gave me a really big hug. And I'm really glad that I got to link up with him in that moment, just because he has been such a big ally to us throughout this whole process, and to share that moment with him was awesome.
Yeah, he's the man. And I'm going to ask you about a couple of your Bellator fighters in the lightweight division.
Yep.
Benson Henderson and Brent Primus. I feel like we haven't heard much about them recently. What do you think's next for those two guys? And right now, Bellator's lightweight division is very open.
Yeah, you know, I saw Benson last week in Phoenix at the gym. The surgeries, the recovery from surgery is going really well. You know, he's someone that always heals really quick. I always joke around like he's like Wolverine, like he heals so fast. So we're real excited to get him back in the mix. Talking to Bellator right now, we should be releasing fight news for Brent Primus. Lost you there for a second. It was Brandon calling. We should be releasing Brent's fight for July here shortly. We're just confirming the opponent, but he'll be coming back, I believe, July 30th.
Cool, man. I got two more questions for you, a little more open-ended.
Yeah.
You have your first championship, you know, your first champion on your roster. Any idea who your second one's going to be? Who do you think's going to make a push here at the title in 2021, 2022?
I mean, man, we have a lot of great up-and-coming talent right now, especially in the lighter divisions. It could be a handful of guys. You know, it's really hard to say. I mean, that's the funny thing about this sport, right? I mean, we signed Brandon Moreno just because I love Brandon Moreno as a human being. You know, we signed him when the division was cut, when he was cut from the UFC. He's always been a favorite of ours, and you know, never with the intention of anything other than to help him and see how far this could go. So life's just wild. You don't know. I think what he said in that post-fight interview was the truth. You know, like life's a wild ride. You just don't know. But I do feel like, you know, even in 25, we have 3 or 4 young guns coming up. 35s, I mean, like you in the top 15 right now with Cody Stamen and Chito Vera and Kyler Phillips and Casey Kenny's knocking on there. All these guys are right there. You know, I mean, there's a handful of guys that we have coming up that are going to be talents and definitely competing for the title in the future.
Yeah, and I know you and I kind of share this next question. You and I kind of share the same passion for the regional scene, you know, who's going to be next, who's going to scouting reports, stuff like that. So outside of the UFC, who are some guys that we should look for? Maybe guys that are on the Contender Series coming up, or just competing at higher levels outside the UFC that you think are gonna break through into the big leagues and make an impact coming up here in the next few months?
Yeah. You know, I think off the top of my head, Mo Miller out of Cleveland, Ohio at 135. I think he's going to be a really big deal in the next coming years. I really truly feel he'll have success this year on the Contender Series. Josh Quinlan out of Las Vegas, Nevada is going to be a star. Darian Weeks is coming up at 170 as well. David Onama at 145. I mean, we have a great list. I mean, I can keep going on and on of guys that are coming up through the ranks that I think are going to be hammers. Cody Brennan at 185. We'll get another shot at Contender Series this year. Chidi Njokwani, I think, is finally going to break through. So there's a lot of guys that I feel are great. This class for 2021 is an amazing class, and I'm really excited. One that I think is kind of a sleeper in the group is Manuel Loco Torres out of Entram in Tijuana. He just won at UWC this past weekend. He's 11-2. He's someone I think that's really going to make a lot of waves. His fighting style is very exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned UWC Mexico. Brandon's not the only one from there too. You've recently tapped kind of into that market. A lot of up and comers coming from Mexico, correct?
Yeah, I mean that gym and Entram is producing a lot of great talent right now. You know, they're going to have quite a few fighters on Contender Series this year. I know Michael Morales, his nickname is John Jones. He's 11-0 out of Ecuador is coming up. So there's a lot of good talent there. And I always love you, Nolan, because I feel like you get the joy that I do in the regional scene and developing talent and building them up and seeing these young guys become tomorrow's stars, you know. And I just really feel like the talent pool is there. It's exciting.
1000%, man. The journey's the best part of this whole thing. And
yes,
I appreciate you. Want to congratulate you on your journey getting that UFC champion, Jason.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time today, man. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.